When the alien princess saw the human's face, she realized he was the one who saved her long ago, HFY. Birds with blue feathers sang sweet songs, and colorful flowers swayed gently in the warm breeze. But Leora did not notice the beauty around her. Her mind was full of worry. The news from the border worlds was not good. A group of rogue aliens had been attacking small settlements, and now the council feared they might reach the capital. Leora, the young princess of Zelara, had always been brave, but even she felt the weight of responsibility pressing on her chest. She stopped near a fountain that sparkled in the sunlight. Water ran smoothly from carved crystal spouts, making soft, soothing sounds. Leora knelt beside it, staring at her reflection. Her large green eyes looked tired, and she realized she had been worrying too much. "I must stay strong," she whispered to herself. "My people depend on me." She pressed her hand to her chest, feeling the pulse of her heart. Leora was only 16 by Zelaran standards, but she carried the wisdom and courage of someone much older. From a very young age, she had been trained to lead, to think quickly, and to make choices that others could not. But tonight, she knew, decisions would have to be made that could change her life forever. The soft sound of footsteps on the marble path made her turn her head. A guard approached, a tall Zelaran with gray skin and glowing amber eyes. "Your Highness," he said respectfully, "the human delegation has arrived. They request an audience with you." Leora nodded slowly. Humans were rare in the galaxy, but they had a reputation. Brave, clever, and often very unpredictable, she felt a mix of curiosity and unease. Humans were small compared to most alien species she knew, but somehow they had a strength that went beyond size or power. Leora straightened her posture and gave a small nod. "Prepare the hall." "I will meet them soon." She watched the guard walk away and took a deep breath. She had met humans before, but none had ever stayed long. They usually came for trade or diplomacy and left without leaving a mark. This time, however, she had the strange feeling that something would be different. Something was stirring in her heart that she could not name. The palace hall was large and bright, with high ceilings that seemed to touch the sky. Light filtered through crystal windows, painting rainbows on the polished floor. Rows of guards stood at attention, their armor gleaming. Leora walked slowly down the hall, her hands clasped in front of her. She felt nervous, but she also felt a strange excitement. When she reached the end of the hall, the doors opened, and the human delegation entered. They moved with confidence, but there was no arrogance in their steps. The leader was a young man, tall for a human but still smaller than most Zelarans. He had dark brown hair and calm, blue eyes. His name was Ethan Blake. Leora noticed him immediately. There was something in the way he held himself, quiet but certain, that made her feel familiar. She could not explain why, but she felt a strange connection to him, as if she had known him for a long time. "Princess Leora," Ethan said in a soft, respectful voice. "It is an honor to meet you." His voice was steady, clear, and warm. Leora nodded and returned the greeting. "Welcome to Zelara, Captain Blake," she said. "I hope your journey was safe." Ethan smiled slightly. "It was. Your planet is beautiful." Leora felt a small smile appear on her lips, even though she tried to remain serious. The delegation behind him consisted of other humans, but none of them drew her attention the way Ethan did. She found herself watching him as he spoke to the council, explaining their purpose. They had come to offer help. Humans were skilled in technology and strategy, and they were willing to assist Zelara in defending against the rogue faction threatening their borders. As the meeting continued, Leora's eyes never left Ethan. She noticed the way he listened carefully, how he nodded at points to show understanding, and how he spoke with honesty. There was no trickery, no false pride. She felt a flutter in her chest, but quickly tried to push it aside. She had a duty to her people, not to feelings. After the formal meeting, Ethan asked to speak to her privately. Leora agreed, leading him to a balcony that overlooked the gardens. The air was warm, and the breeze carried the scent of the flowers. For a moment, they both stood in silence, looking at the sky. "Princess," Ethan said quietly, "I have to be honest. I have been here before a long time ago. I was very young and He hesitated, unsure how to continue. Leora tilted her head, curiosity shining in her green eyes. "You have been here before?" she asked. Ethan nodded. "Not here, not on Zelara exactly, but on another planet far from here. I saved someone once. A young girl trapped on an asteroid. I don't remember everything, but I remember her face, and I remember thinking she was very brave." He paused, unsure if she would believe him. Leora's heart skipped. Her memories, long buried, began to surface. She had been that young girl, alone and scared, facing danger she could not understand. And she had been saved by a human. She had never forgotten him, but time had blurred his face in her memory. Yet now, looking at Ethan, she felt the past coming alive. He was the one who had saved her. Her hands trembled slightly. She looked at him, searching his face, searching for certainty. "Could it really be you?" she asked softly. Ethan looked back at her, equally uncertain. I think so, but I am not sure. So much time has passed." Leora took a deep breath, trying to calm the sudden rush of emotion. "I remember being scared, and then someone appeared, a human, brave, caring. You saved my life. I think it was you." Her voice shook slightly. For the first time, she felt a mixture of relief, gratitude, and something new, something she could not yet name. Ethan swallowed hard. "If it was me, I'm glad I could help. I never imagined I would meet you again." His voice was gentle, sincere. Leora felt warmth spread through her chest. The memories of that day long ago were vivid now. She could see the small asteroid, the dark sky, the strange creatures that had surrounded her. And in the middle of it all, a human had appeared without fear, without hesitation, and had risked everything to save her. For a moment, they simply looked at each other. Words were unnecessary. The connection was clear. Fate had brought them together again after all these years. Leora felt a smile form on her lips, a rare, genuine smile. "It seems the stars have plans for us," she said softly. Ethan nodded. "It seems they do." They stayed on the balcony for a while, sharing stories of their lives. Leora spoke of her duties, the challenges she faced, and the fears she carried. Ethan listened patiently, offering advice when needed, but mostly just listening. His presence was calming, reassuring. For the first time in weeks, Leora felt a sense of peace. But peace was fragile. The news from the council could not be ignored. Rogue factions were growing bolder, and the human delegation had come to help for a reason. Leora knew that their encounter, as extraordinary as it felt, would soon have to face the reality of war. Still, in that moment, the princess and the human shared a quiet understanding. The universe was vast and dangerous, but somehow, two lives had found each other again. And that was the beginning of something neither of them could have expected. As the twin suns dipped toward the horizon, casting long shadows over the palace gardens, Leora felt hope for the first time in a long while. The past had returned to her, not as a memory alone, but as a living presence. And with Ethan Blake by her side, she felt stronger, braver, ready to face whatever the future might bring. For now, they were simply a princess and a human, reunited by fate. But deep inside, both of them knew that their story was far from over. The galaxy was full of danger, and challenges awaited them. But together, perhaps they could overcome anything. Leora turned back toward the palace. The path ahead was uncertain, filled with shadows and threats. But she walked with a steady heart, knowing that the human before her had already saved her once, and perhaps in the days to come he would do it again. And for the first time, she allowed herself to imagine a future where humans and Zellerans could stand side by side, not just as allies, but as friends. The next morning, the palace was alive with activity. Leora moved through the corridors with quiet determination, her mind still filled with the image of Ethan Blake. She could not stop thinking about him. Every step she took reminded her of the moment she had first recognized him on the balcony. It was as if a part of her past had come alive again, reaching out across time and space to touch her. She felt a strange mixture of curiosity, gratitude, and something she did not fully understand. Ethan walked through the palace gardens on his own, studying the plants and the small animals that lived there. Zellara was unlike any planet he had ever visited. The flora and fauna were alive with colors and movements he had never seen before. Every detail fascinated him, but his mind was always drawn back to Leora. He could not forget the way she had looked at him, the way her green eyes seemed to hold questions he could not yet answer. There was something familiar, something important that he knew they shared, though he could not yet put it into words. Later, Leora asked her guards to bring her reports from the border settlements. As she read the messages, she noticed a pattern. The rogue alien faction was moving faster than the council had expected. Entire villages had been destroyed, and survivors reported strange weapons and tactics. Leora felt a chill run through her. She had faced challenges before, but this threat was unlike anything she had ever encountered. She needed help, and she knew that humans might be the key to turning the tide. She called Ethan to her chambers. When he arrived, he bowed politely. Princess Leora, he said, you wish to see me. Yes, Leora replied. I want your advice. The attacks are growing worse. The council is worried, but I need a plan that can protect my people. Ethan nodded. He had seen many conflicts in his life, but the stakes here were different. Zellara was not just a planet. It was home to millions of lives, and its survival depended on quick thinking and careful action. I will help you, Ethan said. We need to understand the enemy first. Who they are, where they come from, and what they want. Then we can plan a strategy. Leora studied him carefully. He spoke with confidence, but there was no pride in his voice. It was as if he had faced impossible situations before and learned to stay calm. She found herself trusting him more than she had trusted anyone in years. Over the next few days, Leora and Ethan worked closely together. They reviewed reports, studied maps, and spoke with Zellar commanders. As they worked, Leora's memories began to return more vividly. She remembered the asteroid, the dark shadows, and the terrifying creatures that had surrounded her as a child. She remembered the moment a human had appeared, strong and fearless, and had pulled her to safety. Every detail came rushing back, and her heart ached with gratitude. She wanted to tell Ethan everything, but she waited, hoping he would remember too. One evening, as they stood on the balcony again, the sky dark with Zellara's 2 moons, Leora decided to speak. Ethan, she said softly, I remember now, I remember you. You saved me once a long time ago on an asteroid far from here. Ethan looked at her, his expression a mix of surprise and disbelief. Me, he asked. Are you sure? Leora nodded. I am sure. I was a child alone and you appeared, you saved my life. I never forgot it. Ethan's eyes widened. Memories came slowly, like fragments of a puzzle. He remembered a young girl, small and frightened, surrounded by strange creatures. He remembered reaching out his hand, not thinking about danger, only about saving her. And now, standing before Leora, he realized that it was her. The girl he had saved all those years ago had grown into the Princess of Zellara. I don't know what to say, Ethan admitted. I remember saving someone, but I never imagined it would be you. Leora smiled gently. You don't need to say anything. I needed you to know. You were my hero, and now you are here again. Their connection grew stronger each day. Leora felt a comfort in Ethan's presence she had never felt with anyone else. He listened to her fears, shared her worries, and offered guidance without ever being pushy. It was as if their bond had started long ago and now continued naturally. But peace was short-lived. Reports came in that the rogue faction had attacked another settlement, and this time they had captured civilians. Leora's heart sank. She could not allow her people to suffer. She knew that action was needed, and she trusted Ethan to help her find a way. We must act quickly, Leora said to Ethan as they studied the reports. They are moving faster than we expected. If we do not stop them, more lives will be lost. Ethan nodded. We can organize a rescue mission. We will need strategy, speed, and coordination. But it can be done. Together they began to plan. Leora selected a small group of elite guards, and Ethan worked with them to prepare weapons, shields, and transport ships. They practiced maneuvers in the training grounds, running simulations and planning every possible scenario. Leora was impressed by Ethan's calmness under pressure. He had a way of seeing the bigger picture while keeping the small details in mind, and it gave her confidence. During these preparations, Leora's memories continued to grow. She remembered small details from the day she had been saved. The sound of Ethan's voice, the way he held her hand, the courage that shone from him even in the face of danger. Every memory made her feel closer to him, and she realized that this bond was more than gratitude. She had never felt this way before, and it made her both nervous and excited. One afternoon, while reviewing maps, Leora looked at Ethan and asked, Did you ever think about what happened to me after the asteroid? Ethan paused. I thought about it sometimes. I wondered if you were safe, if you survived. I hoped you were happy. I never expected to meet you again. Leora's eyes softened. I am alive thanks to you, and now perhaps we can do something together to protect more people. Ethan smiled. Yes, together we can. As the days passed, the rogue faction's attacks became more aggressive. Leora and Ethan realized that waiting for the enemy to strike again would be too dangerous. They decided to lead a small team to the captured settlement to rescue the civilians. The night before the mission, Leora could not sleep. She walked alone through the gardens, thinking of the past and the future. The soft moonlight made the leaves glow, and the gentle breeze carried the scent of flowers. She felt a mixture of fear and determination. She could not fail. Ethan found her in the garden holding a small cup of tea. He offered her a calm smile. "Princess, are you ready?" Leora nodded. "I think I am, but I am nervous. This mission, it will be dangerous." Ethan stepped closer. "We will face it together." "You are not alone." His words brought a strange warmth to her chest. She had felt fear before, but now, with him by her side, she felt courage she did not know she had. The next morning, they boarded a small transport ship with their team. Leora and Ethan reviewed the plan one last time. They knew the enemy would be prepared, but they had an advantage: knowledge and strategy. Leora felt her heart pound with both excitement and fear. She trusted Ethan, and she trusted her guards. Together, they could face anything. As the ship lifted into the sky, Leora looked out at the horizon. Zelera stretched below her, a beautiful and fragile world. She thought of the people who depended on her, the lives at risk, and the young girl she had once been. And she thought of Ethan, the human who had saved her once and who now stood with her again. She whispered quietly to herself, "We will not fail." Ethan, standing beside her, caught her gaze. "We will succeed," he said firmly. "We have to for them." "For everyone?" Leora nodded, feeling a deep sense of determination. The past and present had collided, and together they were stronger. The ship flew through the sky, fast and silent, carrying hope and courage. Leora felt a mix of fear and excitement, but most of all, she felt that she was not alone. Ethan Blake was with her, and that made all the difference. Memories of the past had returned, guiding them both, and now they faced the future together, ready to fight for those who could not fight for themselves. The stars began to shine in the sky as they approached the settlement. The lights of Zelera faded behind them, replaced by darkness and the unknown. But Leora felt a steady strength within her, a courage that came from knowing she had survived before, and knowing that now she was not alone. She had Ethan, and together they would face whatever came next. The ship descended quietly, landing near the edge of the settlement. Leora and Ethan reviewed the plan once more. Guards moved silently, weapons ready. Leora took a deep breath, feeling the weight of responsibility settle on her shoulders. But she also felt hope that had been absent for so long. Ethan stepped beside her, calm and ready. "Are you ready?" he asked. Leora nodded, gripping the hilt of her weapon. "Yes." "Let's bring them home." And with that, they moved forward together, two souls connected by fate, facing danger with courage and ready to change the course of their world. The settlement lay in shadows, half-burned and silent. Smoke rose from the remains of homes, curling into the dark sky. Leora stood at the edge of the landing zone, her green eyes scanning the scene. She had seen destruction before, but this felt different. These were people like her own family, helpless and afraid. Her heart ached, but she knew fear could not guide her. Only action could. Ethan stepped beside her, his expression calm but his eyes sharp. "We move quickly," he said. "The enemy knows we are coming. They will be ready. Stay close to your guards and trust the plan." Leora nodded. The memory of him saving her long ago came back vividly. She remembered the asteroid, the darkness, the creatures, and the small human who had risked everything to protect her. Now, years later, he was by her side again. That memory gave her courage. The team moved silently through the outskirts of the settlement. Leora led the way, stepping carefully over rubble and broken stones. Shadows moved in the distance, the flicker of torches showing enemy patrols. She signaled to Ethan, who nodded in response. Every step had to be precise. One mistake could cost lives. They reached the edge of a small plaza where several prisoners were held. Guards had built cages out of metal and alien wood. The prisoners looked weak, their faces pale with fear. Leora felt a pang in her chest. She thought of the young girl she had been, trapped and scared, and she vowed to save these people no matter what. Ethan crouched beside her. "We split into two teams," he whispered. "I will take the prisoners. You and your guards cover the exit. Timing is everything." Leora nodded, feeling a mix of anxiety and determination. She trusted him. She had to. The operation began. Shadows moved quickly as Ethan and his team advanced toward the cages. Leora's guards followed her instructions carefully, forming a protective barrier around the perimeter. The night was quiet except for the soft hum of distant engines and the occasional cry of an animal. Every sound was amplified in the stillness. Suddenly, one of the cages opened. Ethan moved swiftly, his hands steady as he unlocked the others. Prisoners stumbled out, confused and scared, but safe. Leora saw the relief in their eyes and felt a surge of hope. For a moment, everything seemed to be going perfectly. Then a sharp cry echoed from the other side of the plaza. Shadows moved faster, and Leora realized they had been spotted. The rogue aliens were coming. Panic rose, but she forced herself to stay calm. "Hold your ground," she shouted. "Protect the prisoners." Blaster fire lit up the night. Leora ducked behind a broken wall, her pulse racing. Her guards returned fire, careful and precise. She watched Ethan move among the prisoners, guiding them toward safety. His calmness under pressure amazed her. He had the same courage he had shown all those years ago. She could see it in every step he took, every command he gave. One of the aliens broke through the perimeter, rushing toward the prisoners. Leora raised her weapon and fired. The creature fell, but more followed. The night was alive with chaos, blaster fire flashing in every direction. Leora felt fear clawing at her, but she pushed it down. She could not let it control her. Ethan moved toward her side, covering her as she fired. "Stay with me," he shouted. "We need to get them to the exit." Leora nodded, feeling the trust between them grow stronger. Memories of being saved flashed in her mind. She remembered how small she had been, trembling and helpless, and how he had reached for her without hesitation. Now she was no longer helpless. She had strength, skill, and courage, and he was there with her. They guided the prisoners through the narrow streets, avoiding patrols and ambushes. Leora led the way, careful to signal to her guards. Each corner they turned brought new danger, but they moved as one, coordinated and focused. Leora realized that trust was their greatest weapon. She trusted Ethan completely, and he trusted her. That trust allowed them to act quickly and decisively. At one point, a patrol spotted them. Leora froze, but Ethan acted instantly. He threw a small device that released a blinding light, temporarily stunning the enemies. Leora took advantage of the moment, leading the prisoners down a side alley. Her heart pounded, but she felt exhilaration. She was not just a princess. She was a protector, a leader, and she was making a difference. As they neared the edge of the settlement, the rogue aliens regrouped, preparing for a final attack. Ethan glanced at Leora. "We need a diversion," he said. Leora nodded. She knew exactly what to do. She gathered a few guards and moved toward a small building nearby. With precise aim, they set charges that would collapse part of the structure, drawing the enemy away from the prisoners. The building exploded with a roar, sending smoke and debris into the air. The aliens turned toward the chaos, and the prisoners moved quickly under Ethan's guidance. Leora felt a rush of satisfaction. The plan was working. They were almost safe. But then one of the aliens broke through and lunged at Ethan. Without thinking, Leora rushed forward. She struck the alien with her weapon, sending it sprawling. Ethan recovered quickly, and together they pushed the enemies back. The fight was intense, but they were coordinated, moving as if they had done this together for years. Finally, they reached the exit. The transport ship waited, its engines humming softly. Prisoners climbed aboard, exhausted but safe. Leora and Ethan made sure everyone was accounted for, then turned to face the remaining threats. They had to cover the escape. Blaster fire continued, but Leora felt a strange calm. Memories of being saved long ago gave her strength. She remembered the fear, the darkness, and the courage it took to survive. Now she was that courage. With Ethan by her side, nothing could stop them. They fought side by side, moving with precision. Ethan protected the prisoners, while Leora used her agility and skill to fend off attackers. Every action was instinctive, a combination of training, courage, and trust. The aliens began to retreat, realizing they could not overcome the human and Zellaran forces. The last enemy fell, and silence returned. Smoke rose from the ruins, and the prisoners looked at their rescuers with gratitude and awe. Leora's chest heaved, her heart still racing, but she felt a deep sense of accomplishment. They had succeeded. They had faced danger and come out victorious. Ethan turned to her, his blue eyes shining. "You were amazing," he said quietly. Leora felt warmth spread through her chest. "So were you," she replied. "I never would have thought that we could do this together," he smiled. "I always knew you were brave. I just didn't know I would be lucky enough to see it again." They returned to the transport ship, helping the prisoners aboard. The journey back to the palace was quiet. The prisoners slept, exhausted but safe. Leora and Ethan stood at the front of the ship, looking out at the stars. The mission had been dangerous, but it had also strengthened their bond. Leora thought about the memories of the past and the courage she had found in the present. She realized that bravery was not just about facing danger. It was about trust, connection, and the willingness to act even when fear was present. She had learned this as a child, and now she was living it again. Ethan glanced at her. "Do you remember the asteroid?" he asked softly. Leora nodded. "I do. I remember being scared and helpless, but I also remember you. You gave me courage when I had none." Ethan smiled faintly. "And now you are giving courage to others. You have grown into someone extraordinary, Princess Leora." Leora felt a smile form on her lips. "I couldn't have done it without you," she admitted. "You saved me once, and now you are here again, helping me save others." Ethan looked at her, a mixture of pride and admiration in his eyes. "We saved them together," he said. "That's what matters." The ship approached the palace, the lights of Zellara shining softly below. Leora felt a sense of peace, but she knew the battle was far from over. The rogue faction was still out there, and more challenges would come. But she also knew that with Ethan by her side, she could face anything. As they landed and helped the prisoners safely into the palace, Leora felt the weight of responsibility settle back on her shoulders. But it was lighter now, tempered by courage, trust, and the knowledge that she was not alone. Ethan had been a hero once, and now he was more than that. He was a partner, a friend, and perhaps something more. That night, as the palace settled into quiet, Leora sat by the window looking at the stars. Memories of her childhood returned, but they no longer carried fear. Instead, they carried strength, hope, and the reminder that even in the darkest moments, courage could shine through. Ethan entered quietly and stood beside her. "The people are safe," he said softly. "For now." Leora nodded, grateful for his presence. "For now," she repeated. They stood together in silence, the twin moons casting a gentle glow across the room. For the first time in a long while, Leora allowed herself to feel hope. The past had returned, the present was filled with courage, and the future, though uncertain, seemed brighter because they faced it together. Memories, danger, and trust had brought them to this moment. And now, nothing could break the bond that had formed between a princess and the human who had once saved her. The palace was quiet the morning after the rescue mission, but Leora could not rest. Her mind was filled with thoughts of the rogue faction and the lives still at risk. She walked through the corridors slowly, her hands clasped behind her back, thinking of the next steps. The mission had been a success, but it was only a small victory. The enemy was still out there, planning, attacking, and growing stronger. Ethan walked beside her, carrying a small data pad with reports from the front lines. "We need a plan," he said softly. "The rogue faction is not finished. They will strike again, and next time it could be even worse." Leora nodded, feeling the weight of responsibility settle on her shoulders. "I know," she said. "We cannot wait. We must act before they reach more settlements." They entered the strategy room, a large chamber with holographic maps and charts floating in the air. Leora's guards and commanders were already there, discussing plans and possibilities. When Ethan stepped forward, the room quieted. He had a way of commanding attention without demanding it. His calm presence made everyone listen. "We need to strike their main base," Ethan began. "We cannot keep reacting to their attacks. If we can locate their central command, we can stop them before they hurt more people. But it will be dangerous. We must be careful, precise, and coordinated." Leora studied the holographic maps carefully. The enemy base was hidden in a dense forest, difficult to reach and heavily guarded. "We will need to move quickly," she said. "Any delay could allow them to escape. But I also want to protect my people. No unnecessary risks." Ethan nodded. "Agreed. We will divide into teams, create diversions, and use stealth when possible. Speed and surprise are our advantages." As they planned, Leora could not help but notice how Ethan worked. He was methodical, thinking through every possibility. He asked questions, listened carefully, and offered suggestions without taking control. It was a balance of strategy and respect that impressed her. She felt lucky to have him as an ally, and more than that, she felt a connection she could not ignore. Over the next few days, preparations began. Leora trained with her guards, practicing maneuvers and studying combat strategies. She worked closely with Ethan, learning from his experience and insight. Every night, they would review maps and reports, discussing possible outcomes and solutions. Leora found herself learning more than she ever had before, not just about battle tactics, but about trust, courage, and leadership. During one training session, a sudden alert came through. A scout reported that a smaller group of the rogue faction had been spotted near a nearby settlement. Leora and Ethan exchanged glances. "We cannot ignore this," Leora said. "We have to act immediately." Ethan nodded. "We can handle it." It will be a smaller operation, but we need speed and precision. They assembled a small strike team and boarded fast transport ships. The journey was tense, silence filling the cabin except for the hum of engines. Leora could feel her pulse quicken, but she pushed down fear and focused on the mission. Ethan sat beside her, calm and ready. His presence was reassuring. When they arrived at the settlement, it was clear that the rogue faction had been there first. Buildings were damaged and signs of struggle were everywhere, but there were no prisoners this time. Leora's guards moved quickly to secure the area while Ethan surveyed the scene. "They left in a hurry," he said. "We have time to prepare for a counterattack, but we must be careful. They could be watching." Leora nodded. "We will set traps, gather intelligence, and make sure the civilians are safe. We cannot let them strike again." They worked efficiently, using stealth and strategy to secure the settlement and gather information about the enemy's movements. Leora felt a sense of satisfaction. They were making a difference, and each small victory gave her hope. As night fell, they returned to the palace with their findings. Leora reviewed the reports with Ethan, piecing together the rogue faction's patterns. It was clear that they were becoming bolder, more organized, and more dangerous. Leora knew that the next confrontation would be decisive. "I think we have enough information," Ethan said. "We know where their main base is, how they operate, and what their weaknesses are. We can plan a final strike that could end this threat." Leora leaned over the holographic map, her fingers tracing the lines of enemy movement. "We must be careful," she said. "We cannot underestimate them, but we also cannot wait any longer. The lives of my people depend on us." Over the next few days, they finalized their plan. Leora and Ethan divided their forces into teams, assigning roles and responsibilities. They rehearsed maneuvers, practiced stealth entries, and coordinated attacks. Leora could feel the tension growing, but she also felt a sense of determination and purpose. She had faced danger before, and she was ready to face it again. During the planning, Leora found herself thinking about Ethan more often than she realized. She remembered the day he had saved her, the courage he had shown, and the calm strength he now displayed. She felt a deep admiration for him and a quiet affection that made her heart race. But she did not act on it. Now was not the time. There was too much at stake. One evening, as they reviewed the final plan, Ethan looked at her and smiled faintly. "You've grown strong, Princess," he said quietly. "Not just in skill, but in courage. I knew you were brave as a child, but now it's different. You inspire people." Leora felt warmth in her chest. "I learned from you," she replied. "You taught me courage even when I didn't realize it. You saved me once, and now you guide me again." They stood together in silence, the stars shining through the window. Leora felt a strange mix of emotions, gratitude, admiration, and something deeper she could not name. She looked at Ethan, and for a moment the world seemed to pause. But the reality of the coming battle returned quickly. They had a mission to complete and lives to protect. The night before the final strike, Leora walked alone through the palace gardens. The soft glow of Zelera's twin moons cast silver light on the leaves and flowers. She thought of the people who depended on her, the lives at risk, and the young girl she had once been. Memories of fear and helplessness returned, but so did the courage that had carried her through before. Ethan found her there, quietly joining her. "You are thinking too much," he said softly. "Rest. Tomorrow will be difficult, but we are ready." "Together we can face anything." Leora nodded, grateful for his presence. I cannot stop thinking about the people we are about to save, and about the danger that awaits us." Ethan took her hand gently. "That is why we have to stay calm. Courage is not the absence of fear. It is acting despite fear, and we have each other." She looked into his blue eyes and felt a calm settle over her. She realized that courage was not just about fighting. It was about trust, connection, and belief in each other. She had learned that lesson as a child, and now she was living it again. The next morning, Leora and Ethan led their teams to the enemy base. The journey was tense, the forests dark and thick. Every step was careful, every movement deliberate. Leora's heart raced, but she pushed down fear and focused on the mission. Ethan moved beside her, calm and vigilant. His presence gave her strength. When they reached the outskirts of the base, they paused. The enemy was well prepared, but they were also predictable. Leora and Ethan had studied their patterns, their weaknesses, and their tactics. "Remember the plan," Ethan whispered. "Timing, coordination, and stealth. We move quickly and we leave nothing to chance." Leora nodded, her grip tight on her weapon. The operation began. Leora and her guards moved silently through the shadows, disabling patrols and traps. Ethan guided the prisoners they found, keeping them safe and calm. Every step was calculated, every decision precise. The base was heavily guarded, but they moved with efficiency, striking with speed and surprise. At one point, a large group of enemies rushed toward them. Leora felt fear rise, but she did not hesitate. She fought with skill and courage, her training and instincts guiding her. Ethan moved alongside her, covering her and the others. Their coordination was perfect, a combination of trust, skill, and shared purpose. Finally, they reached the central command. Leora and Ethan led the final strike, disabling communication systems and capturing key leaders. The rogue faction was defeated, their plans destroyed. The base fell silent, the threat eliminated. Leora felt a surge of relief and accomplishment. They had succeeded. As they returned to the palace, the sky bright with the light of Zelara's suns, Leora reflected on the mission. She realized that courage, trust, and connection were stronger than fear. She had faced danger, protected her people, and grown stronger. And through it all, Ethan had been by her side, steady and unwavering. She turned to him, her green eyes shining. "We did it," she said softly. Ethan smiled. "Yes, together." They stood side by side, looking at the world they had protected, knowing that they had made a difference. And for the first time, Leora allowed herself to imagine a future filled not just with duty, but with trust, courage, and perhaps something more between them. Memories of the past and victories of the present had brought them to this moment. And together they were ready to face whatever the future might hold. The day after the final battle, the palace of Zelara was quiet. The twin suns shone softly across the gardens, and a gentle breeze moved through the silver leaves. Leora walked slowly along the marble paths, her mind still alive with memories of the last few days. They had won. The rogue faction had been defeated, their leaders captured, and the people of Zelara were safe once more. But victory brought new responsibilities. Leora knew she had to rebuild to protect her people and to ensure that peace lasted. Ethan walked beside her, carrying a small folder of reports from the field. "We have to start the reconstruction efforts," he said quietly. "The settlements were damaged, but the people are safe. We need to organize food, shelter, and medical care. It will take time, but it can be done." Leora nodded, her eyes scanning the gardens. "We will do it," she said. "We have to. My people have suffered enough. They deserve a chance to live without fear." They reached the balcony overlooking the palace grounds, where guards and workers were already beginning the restoration. Leora felt a sense of hope rise in her chest. The people were resilient, and with help they would recover. Ethan stood beside her, calm and steady. She realized that his presence had become a source of strength, not just in battle, but in life. She could trust him completely, and that trust gave her courage she had never known before. Over the next few days, Leora and Ethan worked tirelessly. They visited damaged settlements, spoke with the survivors, and organized aid. The people looked to them for guidance, and both of them felt the weight of responsibility pressing on their shoulders. But they were determined to succeed. Each small victory, each life saved, brought them closer together. One afternoon, Leora and Ethan visited a village that had been nearly destroyed. Children ran to them, their faces bright with hope and curiosity. The villagers had begun rebuilding their homes, and the community had already started to recover. Leora felt a warmth in her chest. She realized that their efforts were more than just military victories. They were restoring faith, hope, and courage to the people. Ethan knelt to speak with a young boy who had lost his parents in the attacks. "Are you okay?" he asked gently. The boy nodded, holding a small toy he had salvaged from the rubble. "I am okay," he said. "Thanks to you." Ethan smiled softly, placing a hand on the boy's shoulder. Leora watched, feeling a deep admiration for the human who had once saved her and was now helping so many others. As they returned to the palace that evening, Leora felt a sense of peace. The battle was over, the rogue faction defeated, and the people were safe. She had survived fear, faced danger, and emerged stronger. And through it all, Ethan had been by her side, steady and unwavering. Memories of the past had returned, and now they were living the present together. That night, Leora stood on the balcony, looking at the stars. The sky was clear, and the twin moons cast a gentle glow over the palace. Ethan joined her quietly, standing beside her. "It is peaceful tonight," he said softly. Leora nodded. "Yes, for the first time in a long time, it feels like we can breathe." They stood in silence for a moment, the calm of the night wrapping around them. Leora felt her heart beating faster, not from fear or anxiety, but from something new, something she had never felt before. She realized that her feelings for Ethan had grown stronger, deeper than gratitude or respect. She admired him, trusted him, and cared for him in a way that went beyond words. Ethan looked at her, his blue eyes reflecting the moonlight. "Princess Leora," he said quietly, "there is something I need to tell you." Leora turned to him, her green eyes wide. "What is it?" she asked softly. "I have always felt a connection to you," he said, his voice steady but filled with emotion. "When I saved you all those years ago, I did not know what it would mean, but meeting you again, it has changed everything. I care for you, Princess, more than I can explain." Leora felt warmth spread through her chest. Her heart raced and she realized that she felt the same way. "Ethan," she whispered, "I feel the same. You have always been in my heart, even when I did not understand it." They stood together, the quiet night around them, realizing that their bond had grown stronger through shared danger, trust, and courage. Memories of the past, the rescue, and the battles had shaped their connection. Now they could acknowledge it, and it felt right. Over the next few days, Leora and Ethan continued their work, but there was a new lightness in their steps. They moved together, side by side, sharing responsibilities, and their bond grew even stronger. Leora found herself smiling more, laughing more, and feeling hope she had not known before. The people noticed their connection and felt inspired. Courage, trust, and love were visible in their actions, and it gave the citizens of Zellara a new sense of hope for the future. One morning, as they oversaw the rebuilding of a small village, Leora watched Ethan help a group of children carry supplies. He laughed with them, showing patience and kindness that went beyond his role as a soldier or strategist. She realized that he was extraordinary not just for his skills but for the heart he showed to everyone. She wanted to be near him, to share her life with him, and to face whatever the future held together. Later, Leora took Ethan to the palace gardens. The silver leaves shimmered in the sunlight, and the air was filled with the scent of flowers. "Ethan," she said softly, "I want to thank you, not just for saving me all those years ago, but for being here now. For helping my people, for being by my side, and for being you." Ethan smiled, taking her hand gently. "I never expected to meet you again," he said. "But now I cannot imagine a life without you. You have always been brave, and now I see your courage in everything you do." They walked through the gardens together, hand in hand, feeling a peace that had been absent for so long. The past, the battles, and the memories had led them to this moment. They were no longer just a princess and a human. They were partners, friends, and something more. As days turned into weeks, the reconstruction of Zellara continued. Villages were rebuilt, defenses strengthened, and the people began to feel safe again. Leora and Ethan oversaw every step, their teamwork and trust evident in every decision. The bond between humans and Zellarans grew stronger, inspired by the courage and cooperation of the princess and the human who had once saved her. One evening, as the twin suns set, casting a warm glow across the palace, Leora and Ethan stood together on the balcony. "We have come a long way," Leora said softly. "From fear and danger to this peace, it feels almost impossible to believe." Ethan nodded. "We faced the impossible together, that is why we succeeded. Courage, trust, and working together, that is what saved your people, Princess." Leora smiled, feeling the weight of the past lift from her shoulders. "And courage brought us together," she said, squeezing his hand gently. "You saved me once, and now we are saving so many others together." "I am glad you are here with me." Ethan looked at her, his expression soft and full of emotion. "I am glad too," he said. "I have always been glad, and now I am glad we can face the future together." The night was calm, the stars shining above. Leora felt a deep sense of hope, not just for herself, but for her people and the galaxy. Humans and Zellarans had fought side by side, and their bond had created a new path for the future. Courage, trust, and friendship had changed everything. Over the next few months, Leora and Ethan worked to strengthen the relationship between humans and Zellarans. Trade agreements were signed, joint training programs established, and cultural exchanges began. The galaxy began to see humans in a new light, not just as small and fragile beings, but as clever, courageous, and compassionate allies. Throughout it all, Leora and Ethan remained side by side. Their bond grew stronger with each passing day, filled with mutual respect, admiration, and a quiet affection that neither of them could deny. They had survived danger, faced challenges, and emerged stronger together. Memories of the past and victories of the present had led them to this moment. One morning, as they stood in the palace gardens, watching children play and the people rebuild their homes, Leora turned to Ethan. "You know," she said softly, "I never thought I would see the day when I could feel truly safe and happy, but now I do, and it is because of you." Ethan smiled, taking her hand. "You saved yourself too, Princess," he said. "I was there, yes, but your courage, your wisdom, and your heart, they made everything possible." They stood together, the twin suns shining brightly above, the garden alive with life. Leora realized that the journey had changed her, made her stronger, and taught her the true meaning of courage. And Ethan had been there through it all, steady and true. In that moment, they knew the future was theirs to shape. The rogue faction was defeated, the people were safe, and the bond between humans and Zellarans had never been stronger. Leora and Ethan had faced the impossible, and together they had created hope, courage, and a new beginning. As they walked hand in hand through the palace gardens, Leora felt a deep sense of peace. The memories of being saved long ago had returned, guiding her, shaping her, and now leading her to a future filled with trust, courage, and love. Ethan had saved her once, and together they would continue to save and protect others, building a legacy that would be remembered for generations. The stars shone brightly above, the twin moons casting silver light across the palace. Leora and Ethan stood together, looking at the galaxy that stretched endlessly before them. They knew that challenges would come, but with courage, trust, and each other, they could face anything. And in that moment, Princess Leora realized something she had always known deep inside. The human who had saved her long ago was not just a hero, but her partner, her ally, and perhaps the most important person in her life. Together, they would shape the future, protect the innocent, and inspire courage across the stars.